Hello, everybody. I'm Derek Arden, and welcome to Monday Night Live, our live and uncut podcast, which goes out every Monday night and is then syndicated onto YouTube, Spotify, and all the platforms. Today, I've got Sue Richardson with me. I've known Sue for a while. She's been a great supporter of mine when I was chairman and president of the Professional Speaking Association. I just want to tell you a little bit about Sue. Sue is an award-winning non-fiction publisher, founder of the Right Book Company, and as we know, a book is really a business card to get you more business. Theatre was Sue's passion, and she was in the activist youth theatre for a while, went back to university, got a degree, set up her own theatre company. Now in Sue's business, she gets to travel. She was at the Beijing book fair not so long ago and the Frankfurt book fair a while ago. Sue, thanks for joining us. And can you give me a snapshot or give us a snapshot of how you got into publishing?
I'd be delighted, Derek. Yes. Hello, everybody. And thank you so much for inviting me to this wonderful company of people. It's lovely to see you all here. And how did I get into publishing? Well, I had moved away from the theatre, which was a disaster, really. I mean, much as I loved it, I could never make ends meet. I was always a very impoverished actor and director, and so I decided that I needed to make some money. So I went and worked for in the higher education sector for a bit. And that also kind of flopped a bit for me. But one of the best things, the thing that I absolutely loved about my job working at what was then the University of North London, was that we published a monthly newsletter for a kind of research, a European research group that we'd set up. And I loved it. I really got the publishing bug. Now, I'd always been nuts about books anyway. And when I came out, I thought, right, publishing is going to be my career. So it took me a little while to find it. I was in my early 30s by the time I actually realized the books were it. But once I realized, that was it. And I've been there ever since.
Wow. And did you write a book yourself at the beginning or not? Or
I did. I wrote a book, not right at the beginning. I think one of the things about publishing is that I suppose I created a book. I had a series of books that were all based in the art and craft world. And it was a sort of, I was always a bit more of an editor than a writer, although I do write now. It's one of those things, I think, if you love to edit other people's work and pull other people's ideas together and see their stories go out into the world, sometimes it can feel like a big leap to do your own. I have written a couple of small books, but it's much more my thing to edit and publish other people.
And just describe to us the different types of book publishing, because most people don't understand that. I didn't when I first got into it. I thought you had to go and find a publisher and they would take all the costs and publish your book. I realized after I was thrown out of a couple of publishers by a 18-year-old who said, well, why should we publish your book? What's different to the other 1,000 books on negotiating? I gave up and then self-published my own and did it. You're sort of in the middle, aren't you? Can you describe that to everybody?
Yeah, well, our business model is it's a hybrid publishing company, which is kind of a relatively new term, actually, but it's a good one. It's the first one, I think, that everybody's sort of embraced, because it sort of is right in the middle between self-publishing and the traditional trade publishing route. Now, as you say, Derek, I mean, the trade publishing route is all about a publisher buying your idea, buying into what it is that you have to say, and buying into you as well. Trade publishers need to know that you're going to be able to get behind your book and really make it fly. So they love to work with people who have big networks, probably quite high profiles already, and possibly quite a new and original idea. The main thing for a traditional publisher, of course, is that they have to have a commercial product. Because the only way, they're really manufacturers, and the only way that they can make any money and keep the lights on and pay their people and all of the rest is by flogging lots and lots of product. i.e. books. So they need your idea to be something that they can really get behind, that they can sell, and that they know you will sell lots of books too. So that's how that works. Self-publishing, of course, anyone can do. And it's nowadays very easy to do it. And as we know, you have gone down both routes, so you can tell us a bit about that. But the thing is about the hybrid, and I love being a hybrid publisher, is that I have the kind of honor really of being able to work with people who've got a really great business case for a book and really great ideas and things to say and stories to tell, but they don't necessarily have something that's going to be a commercial enough product to fly thousands and thousands and thousands of books off the shelves. So your experience when you self-published, absolutely, it's, you had a few closed doors, but then suddenly, I imagine this is what happened, was they came after you a bit later once you were Derek Arden, the expert that you had become and were seen to be. So you were more sought after. Would that be right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And when I self-published that with a guy called Aidan Stone that people know, I made it look, I spent a fair bit of money on it. I tried to make it look my last book. This is going to be on the shelf at WH Smith's. Of course, it wasn't, and we'll talk about how you get a book on, but it found that was the difference. And the same thing happened to Will Kinchish about a month before. So if we hadn't put the energy into self-publishing, we would have never been found by Pearson, who published Will's book, published my book, who particularly wanted UK experts on subjects to write a book. And therefore Eloise Cook, the editor, who was fantastic, wrote the business case. I didn't have to do all the things I hate, like writing business cases, pitching it, etc. They did it all. But as she said, there's no money in this, Derek. So, you have to decide why you're doing it. And I decided I was doing it for the ego trip and the business card, and that was the right answer. But she did quiz me on how many connections I had on Facebook, how many connections on LinkedIn, how many connections on Instagram, and made me realize you've got to get tons, lots. I went from 500 to 5,000.
Yeah.
Really, very quickly.
And to be honest, it's, that's really it's really helpful. What I always say to people is, even if you think perhaps that going down the trade route, the traditional publishing route, isn't quite right for you, it's really worth having a look at it first anyway, because you learn so much from the process. And if you go to a publisher, say you go to Pearson's website and you download the guidelines for authors that they give you, they lay it out for you, all the things that you need to do to write and publish a really brilliant book. They give you, it's a great way to kind of put yourself into that mindset of, what is the business case that I have for this book, and how will I make it work, and how will the book work to increase my profile to get me where I want it to go? Because what I think a book really is for most of us who are using this in our business, it's a door opener. It's so much more than a business card, actually, Derek. I mean, you're absolutely right. It's a brilliant business card, but wow, it's so much more than a business card, because it's something that actually we can directly speak to people we may not even be aware of. They're there, and they might pick up our book serendipitously and actually go, gosh, wow, I've seen this book, Win-Win by Derek Arden. This guy, I need to get this guy in. So it's like, that whole thing of where your book might reach if you do it really well and you do it properly. And that's one of the slight problems about self-publishing. And there may be some of you here who've already gone down that route, and I get it. And it's a great way to kick off, but it's a lot of work, and the distribution piece is quite tricky. It's not where you work with a proper publisher, a professional publisher, you're more likely to get your book seen by people who don't already know you.
And people don't realize that it's tricky, and you're not writing a business book for the money, for sure. Some people really think they are. You're writing it for the other things that go with it. So let's turn to why should a business owner, say someone like John Lisby, who's an accountant, why should they write a book?
As a business owner, again, so it's about credibility. It's about being known for who you are and what you do, and it's also an opportunity to tell the stories that have got you to where you are in your business. So whatever it is, I mean, there may be any number of reasons why a business owner. We work with an awful lot of business owners and leaders. We've done one book quite recently for a major global company who wanted simply to celebrate their 30th anniversary of being in business. So that for them, and they've got a beautiful book that they've spent a lot of money on, and they've presented it in a lovely case with a little piece of video. And I mean, it's really amazing. And they're just sending that to all the people that they've ever worked with, all the people they'd like to work with, and they're using it as a massive celebration. And the legacy of the CEO of that company, telling the story of those 30 years of what has got that company from nowhere to where it is today has been a wonderful thing for that company to do. So that it could be for that reason. Sometimes you might have business owners who are on a bit of a mission. Not, that perhaps, a purpose-led business. We've worked with, for example, Paul Hargreaves, who is the CEO of Cotswold Fair, who are they're a wholesaler, food wholesalers. He's on an absolute mission. He's a B Corp ambassador, and he wants to go out into the world to speak about how businesses can be forces for good. So, for Paul, his books are very much about those speaking opportunities that they've given him the platform to really go out and kind of move outside of his kind of his role. It's all bound up with his role in business,
Sure.
But it's actually, a slight extension of that too. So any number of reasons why, but a really good one, I think, is really about refining one's content, one's IP, and actually being able to formulate it, think deeply about what it is that our business means in the world, and get it out there.
And as Patricia Fripp said last week on the show, it's all about stories, and everyone's got stories, haven't they? They don't realize that. So when I joined the Speaking Association, everybody told me I should write a book. All the top speakers had written books, and I sort of ignored it for too long. And then when I wrote one, I thought I should have done this years ago. I was ignoring all. So if someone on the call or watching this on YouTube, listening to this on Spotify, thought they wanted to write a book and had this idea, what should they do first?
Oh, great question. Well, I think for me, to be really honest, I think people need to think about why it is they want to do it in the first place. So really get clear about what they see happening as a result of being a published author, as a result of this book being out into the world. An awful lot of people, especially people who've got a lot of knowledge about their subject area, start with the what. They start with, okay, I've got all this stuff in my head. I'm just going to get it all out on paper. And we at the Right Book Company really, really believe that if you start with a kind of really clear strategic process of why do you want to do it in the first place and who do you want to do it for? So it's the objectives that you seek. So they may be things like reach. There may be things like, PR or being known for what it is that you do, or there may be things like, like being talked about more, reputation, all of that kind of stuff. So whatever it is that's right for you, whatever it is you want to create by being a published author, think about those reasons, think about the why first, and then almost hand in hand with that, think about the who. So, who is your target audience? Who do you want to influence? Who do you want to reach? And if you think those two things through very, very carefully, sometimes the what just drops out of that. It's clear what it is that you need to do and where you need to start.
Yes, what I used to call the 5WH from Rudyard Kipling, what, why, how, when, who, is absolutely crucial in everything. But you're talking very business-like you should write a business case first. And I get that, but a lot of people don't, do they? They come straight at it. I want to write a book.
Yeah. And that, we're human beings. As human beings, we're very driven by our egos. We're quite vain creatures, really. We all think we're terribly, terribly interesting. And actually we are. But if actually that's our driver, it can mean that we miss what it is, that we've got this gift. We need to allow it to land. We need to make sure that we're wrapping it up in the right way. And that gift is really needed and wanted. It's like any other product, really. People don't go into business to create products unless they know what it is they want to do, but also they know it's going to land. They know somebody needs it out there. So being very focused on that business case, as you say, Derek, for the book, and kind of almost you could almost think about creating a mini business plan for your book.
Yeah,
thinking through the market for it, think all the things that you as business owners might do, you might think of in terms of creating this book product, bearing in mind that, as Derek says, it's a very odd product, a book, because you're probably not creating, the one thing you're probably not creating it for is to make lots of money out of the sales of that product. But what you're doing is you're creating something that actually will return you some cash from, Derek, you've been selling your books today, which I'm very pleased to hear about. But it's not all about that. It's much more about getting those stories out and getting that influence over, over other people, reaching people who might not know you and all of that kind of stuff, and increasing the way people talk about you, how they talk about you, and how they can pick up your ideas and run with them.
Now, there's an American guy, Dan Poynter, who he's not with us anymore, sadly. He used to say everyone's got a book in them. And he told me once, when I was picking up a bit of free coaching, 10 chapters, 10 subheadings to the chapters, and just get your computer out and get on with it. And then somebody else told me, get a return ticket to Edinburgh, take your computer with you, get lots of coffee, and the momentum of the train will, and that works for me.
Do you know, I know an awful lot of people who use train journeys to do. It's amazing, because it's weird, isn't it? It's almost like we get so distracted. It's so easy when we're busy running businesses, to be distracted by all the little day-to-day stuff. We have to find a way of actually immersing ourselves in this project and getting it done. It's true. So train journeys are good.
Amazing. Now, Damien Lewis is one of our friends on here, and he came on the Top Masterclass, and his latest book's out, and he's under real pressure all the time to, every 6 months he's got to produce a book, which I think makes him quite a bit of money. But actually a film's now been produced, and that's really taken off for him. How many of us can expect, Netflix to come in for our books, Sue?
I don't think very many in our space, sadly.
Yeah, well, there we go. And Dan said everyone's got a book in them. Should someone like one of our professionals on the show or listening to this, should they write a book about their life story for their grandchildren? I know some people would like to do that, or should you just bash it out on a Word document?
I think there's no harm in, I think this is where self-publishing does come into its own, actually. What's the harm in that? My grandfather died at 104, and he was a Geordie, and he literally had an incredible business. And believe it or not, he was an importer of coal. Wow. Now, they say coals to Newcastle. Well, he really did do it. He imported coal to Newcastle between the wars, made himself quite a lot of money, but worked until his early 90s, wouldn't ever give up work. When he stopped working, he started writing, and he wrote poetry, and he wrote the story of his experience in the First World War, which was a book called The Civilian Soldier. He wasn't a good writer, but he published every single book himself. And we were so proud of him. I've still got some of his old poetry books. He's been dead a long time now, but he lived to 104, scribbling away. And I think that's where if there's a real personal thing that you want to do, like leaving a legacy for your grandchildren, go for it. And that's when self-publishing really can come into its own, because you can do it very cost effectively. There is no business case for it, frankly. but it's just a personal thing and it's a lovely thing to do. So why not?
It's a lifestyle business,
Yeah,
isn't
yeah,
it?
and it's
Yeah.
something that your family will love, actually.
So I was with Will Kintich 10 days ago, and we were discussing how long you might live. And I think maybe your granddad lived a long time because he was still working till he was 90, and then he was writing
Exactly.
books. I mean, I've got a theory, you got that purpose and you're doing things. Wow, it makes a massive difference because the chemicals you pump into your body by being positive are fantastic.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. Let me see what I've got on my list here. So, how do many leaders, let's go back to leaders, how do they find the time or the space to write a book?
Oh, yes. I mean, and you and your train, I mean, what a great way to do it. You have to be disciplined. You have to find a way of carving out the time in your diary, because if you don't, it won't happen. And the other thing I think is, the other thing people don't realize is that, you don't have to do this on your own. We run things like the Right Book Buddies, which are groups of people who are all in the process of writing a book. You do not have to go and sort of hide away in some lonely attic, or slaving away over a notepad or a laptop. You can find a writing coach. You could find a developmental editor to work with. You could find other people who are writing books, like book buddies. We've got a group starting in February if anybody's interested. So find ways of finding other people to hold you accountable to your deadlines and your goals, because otherwise I've seen people spend and don't be afraid if it takes a long time. It's perfectly okay for it to take a long time. Many of us more entrepreneurial types tend to be in a bit of a rush, and we're all like, bull at a gate. But actually, you'll probably write a better book if you give this project some space and some time. And no doubt you're very busy in your business. So, carve out the time, make it possible, make it, maybe I've got clients who will book a week in a cottage in the middle of nowhere with, where the mobile signal is not good. I've myself wrote my second book because my team were all on at me. Where's the manuscript, Sue? Where's the manuscript? And I got on a plane and I went to Mallorca for a week, and I pretended to everybody I was on holiday. I wasn't. I was writing my book. And that was great, so there are different ways, different tricks, different things, but do be aware that you may need to plan it. You may need to create a schedule and a plan, and expect it to take longer than you think.
Yeah, what I found is a tip for people is that when I sat down to write the book at home, nothing came out. My mind just went blank. Another cup of coffee, go and do a bit of gardening, perhaps it'll all come back. It didn't. Yeah. And I had writer's block for about a month, and I was being chased by the editor of Pearson, who was very nice, and I built rapport with her, so she was very kind to me and let me off. But yeah, I did get writer's block. And do you find that a lot of your authors get writer's block for a bit?
Well, this is where I say get help, because writer's block is actually the voice in your head that's saying that you can't do it, and you need to get out of that. That mindset is not going to help you at all, because just sharing it with somebody, whether it's an editor or a coach or a friend, it doesn't matter. Just know that you need to move beyond that voice that's telling you that you can't do it. And the other thing is, I think if you come back to the why and the who always, that helps, because that idea that there's nothing there is, you can just, if you start writing and you start writing about what you want to achieve, you will soon find that you free up, because you're giving yourself that reminder of what your purpose is and who's going to benefit from this book being written. So it's not all about you. It's a bit like, how, as many of us, Derek, you and I met in the Speaking Association. I know that there are other speakers here, Will and Shelley, and, various, I'm sure, of you who are speakers as well. We can get ourselves all tied up in knots by worrying about how good we are on the stage. And the best tip anyone ever gave me was to say, Sue, it's not about you, it's about them. If you put yourself out there in the audience's mind and say, I'm here to serve them, what is it they need from me? the nerves go, the jitters go, the worry about what it is that you're going to say, because you're thinking about them. Think in the same way, I think you can use that when you're writing a book. You can think about the reader. You create somebody that's, you can help with this book in your mind's eye, and think about them asking you questions. What is it that they want to know from you? And that soon frees you up. Another thing I want to say about writer's block and about getting stuck actually quickly is, don't you've got two heads when you write a book. You've got the creative writing, I'm making this up as I go along head, and then you've got an editor head who's trying to tidy it all up. Sometimes what happens is we have both of those voices in our minds. The editor person will stop the creative person from writing. So get rid of the editor for now. Tell them very kindly that person just to go away, because you need that person later to come back and tidy things up. But actually get writing. Don't care too much about it being brilliant or perfect or wonderful. Just get writing. Get yourself into the flow, and then the editor can come back and tidy it all up for you.
And of course, I wrote my self-published book without an editor, sent it out to all my friends. All their comments came back. They were all different. They're all different views, and I didn't know what to do. I had real overwhelm, and it wasn't, and that's just my personality. Those of you that know me well, I wasn't going to pay an editor to do this. I could do this. I wrote reports and all sorts of things. I couldn't really, Sue. When Pearson put a professional editor on it, I couldn't believe the difference it made. So if people wanted to use you, Sue, in the hybrid model is basically they come up with an idea, they go to you, you help them, coach them, edit it, produce it, and show them how to publish it. What sort of, I'm going to put you on the spot here, what sort of ballpark cost is that for anyone? It sounds like £10,000 or something like that if you're using all these people.
Yeah, I mean, it is a professional publishing route. So it is essentially the same as you would get if you went to a trade or traditional publisher. It's just that the business model is that you fund it. So yes, you probably are looking at something around that kind of ballpark figure to get your book produced professionally and in the right way. So, we're using only book trade professionals, book publishing professionals. So, your designer and your editors and your proofreaders and right up to the people who print your book, who are book manufacturers for people like Pearson and all the other big publishers. So, everything is done to a very high standard, and everything is done with a great deal of care towards creating the right book for you. So there's a lot of consultancy goes on. There's a lot of positioning and thinking very carefully about what you want to achieve with your book and how we can help you make that work. So the plan is a very important part of that piece. So yeah, you probably need to be looking at that kind of budget. And then there's on top of that, I guess you might be looking at developmental editing help, or you might be looking at, it depends on how much help you need. So you could spend £6,000 or so on a book coach for a year if you wanted to do that. But not everyone needs to do that or has the wherewithal to do that. So it just depends a little bit on your budget and how much support, how much resource you feel that you can invest in it. And then, of course, there's also PR and publicity at the end as well, which whether you're with a traditional publisher or a hybrid, you would need to fund yourself as well. But you don't have to do that. You can use somebody in your team if you've got someone, or you can do it yourself, or you can, there's all sorts of ways of doing promotion and publicity without necessarily having a huge budget for it.
And that might find us a professional publisher like Pearson found Will and I. But and that gives you all sorts of benefits, and one of the things the MBA group I spoke to this morning didn't believe, and I saw their shock horror, that to get it in the business book section at Heathrow, Pearson had to pay WH Smith to have it there. So you have got to pay a green fee to get it there. And it's the same with novels. And my wife was horrified when she realized that the novels that are showing in the top 10 were paid for by the publisher to be there, and the books could have been absolutely useless. And I was pretty horrified at that, but that's interesting. Yeah. And when the books were in there and Will's was in there and mine was in there, if any of our friends saw it at number 35, which it probably was, while the camera wasn't on, you just put it at number
Put it
one.
up on the number
That's
one
the
slot.
golden rule for
Yay!
friends in the books. Yeah. So we're nearly out of time. This has been absolutely brilliant. Loads of advice for everyone. One last tip for budding authors on the show today.
Oh, one last tip. Okay. Something I haven't said. Well, I'm going to say something I've already said. I'm sorry, but one last tip is just don't be lonely. Don't feel you need to do this alone. However you do it, find somebody you can work with, whether that's a professional person or whether it's a friend who's also writing a book. It doesn't matter. Just get together with somebody else who's on this same journey so that you can share that experience with them. That would be my number one tip for anyone who's thinking of writing a book for their business.
And make sure that person's positive. You don't want any of these people saying you'll never write a book, because we know all where they are, putting negative things in their head. I think I might ring the negativity bell on myself. Now, you haven't said that, but I think you should say it. If people want advice from you, you have a call to action, don't you? You give people half an hour of free complimentary advice, put them on the right page to get on with it.
Absolutely, Derek. Yes, absolutely. This is one of my favorite bits about my job, is I love listening to people's ideas and stories. So what we do at the Right Book Company is I personally spend, I offer a free discovery call to anyone who's got an idea. It needs to be business related. It doesn't have to be a business book, but if the book is related in some way to your business, I absolutely want to hear about it. So you just go to therightbookcompany.com, and right there on the homepage, there's a button that says Discovery Call. Click on that, fill in a very simple little form, and we will be in touch to book you in for 30 minutes for us to have a chat about your book idea.
Great. Well, you've really taken us through the whole issues of books, writing books, self-publishing, finding a publisher. And you probably won't find a publisher unless you do something about it, in my opinion. But there we are. Sue Richardson, thanks for joining us. And can I ask members of Monday Night Live to thank Sue in the traditional way? Sue, that was brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
One last thing has just occurred to me. You go to all these different book fairs. You arrange for some of these books to be translated into different languages. Seeing John Timms there sitting in Paris reminded me of that.
Yeah, well, we sell the rights, Derek. Whenever we can, we sell the rights. We just in the last week, we sold one book in Lithuania. We sold a Ukrainian rights to a book earlier in the year. Amazing. I didn't think, even the bookstores are closed in Ukraine, but they're still buying books. We sell in China, we sell in Vietnam, we sold all over the world. So yes, sometimes some of the books that our authors write get translated and published into other languages, which is always very exciting for everybody.
Clearly the trick is knowing how to do it, and that's where your expertise comes in. Sue Richardson, thanks for joining Monday Night Live. I hope you join us again in a few months' time.
I'd be delighted. Thank you so much, Derek. Thanks everybody.